There we go. There's that lady.
There we go.
All right.
Welcome to Temple Aaron, uh, final session of sacred Jewish learning. Uh,
Close enough.
and Rabbi, I just go ahead and you want to take it away, Sherry, if
Okay.
you want to throw in.
No,
Okay.
turning it to Rabbi.
All right, Neil, should I go?
Yeah, go ahead.
Bye. Um, all right, ladies and gentlemen, it's nice to see all of you back in your assigned boxes. Um, thanks to the magic of Zoom. Tonight is the last of the four sessions that we put together. The focus of tonight is going to be a conversation on this explosion of new rituals that have emerged in the last decade or so, driven as part of the revolution in American Judaism, um, and the search for community and meaning. But first, before we dive into some of these, and some of these are going to be very nice and easy, you'll all like them. Some of them are somewhat controversial. Some of them will reflect some of the radical changes in American Jewish life. And then we'll close with the one that's gotten us into some of the more. It's two of them has got them into some trouble. One, uh, and and the last one will have to do with adultery. But that's the teaser for the end. So before we begin, I want to make mention of one thing, which today is because I don't know whether in the communities that you are living there has been mention, but believe it or not, and it is somewhat hard to believe, this is the 80th anniversary of the liberation of the camps of Auschwitz.
Yeah.
And when you come right down to it, it's kind of interesting to think that what was going on 80 years ago and now what we're doing. And there's a certain sense of gratitude that Jewish people from around the United States, 80 years after they tried to destroy us, have the ability to sit in your living room, turn on a machine, and have a conversation about significant Jewish issues. Um, Jewish history is a fast, it's another class, but not for tonight. Um, but I wanted to make mention of that before it just slips away. And I don't know in your areas whether they've making mention of that or had any specific programs around it. Um, but
Yes, it's International Holocaust Remembrance Day.
right, it's
Yeah.
just 80 years. It's a long.
Yeah.
It's hard to believe. Um,
Photo
anyway,
did a good job of it today.
good. So here's so we're going to talk a little bit. How many of you have how many? And just feel either raise your hand or jump in, unmute yourself if you want to jump in. How many of you have um, various rituals that you do? A rituals, just various for yes. Okay, Sharon, like what is your favorite ritual? What's a normal ritual for you? And I have a bunch of them. But you have to unmute Sharon. I can't hear you, Sharon. Unmute. She's not hearing me.
Sharon, you have to hit your space.
There you go.
Okay.
Okay, can you hear me?
Oh,
Oh yeah,
Sharon,
you've got some
turn it off.
serious
Turn it off.
feedback.
Turn it off. Turn it off. Turn it off. That's your machine that's driving that the feedback. Okay, Sharon will fix it. I hope. Um, that's the machine. Maybe it's the dog that's doing it. Um, yeah, Chuck and Nancy, in a rock and roll group in the
Can you hear
60s.
me?
Friday night, Nancy and I stand on opposite sides of the table. She lights candles, and I sing Kiddush.
All right.
And then we do chamotzi.
Do you have any other like non-Jewish rituals that you do?
I put on my socks and shoes every day. I still do it by myself.
Am I unmuted?
Now you are. Go ahead, Sharon. No, you're not. Okay, Sharon, we're gonna have a. Let's be the dog.
You were
Okay.
unmuted for a moment and it sounded good.
Okay, I'm gonna move on.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. What's the difference between, like, I have a variety of rituals. Like, one of my, when I get up, I have to have a cup of coffee, sit down, do a little meditation, and hopefully read the sports section so I can get really depressed. Um, I used to watch an hour of the news. I've pulled that back for self-care because it's crazy. Um, when I watch one of my teams, like either the Phils, especially I will, I have my Philly socks, my Philly shirt. It's rituals. What's the difference? What's the difference between a ritual that you may do? I walk a certain way. I have this ritual every day that I like. I drive this way. Between a regular ritual or routine that you may do and a religious ritual, what's the difference? Anybody want to hazard a guess?
May I speak?
Yeah.
So this is Robert.
Yeah.
I'd say a ritual of mine is of my own understanding, my own decision, whereas of a religious ritual is somebody else who has predicted or predestined how it should be done. And
Okay.
I do every single night that's not been written, but it was suggested to me 35 years ago, and I haven't stopped. So
Okay. So what we're seeing now in especially the last 10, 15 years, as baby boomers have aged and have tried to take more control of what their Judaism is, and as we have experienced more issues in life that were perhaps not in the Talmud or the Torah, because we didn't live into our 80s and 90s, there has been an uptick in the interest of creating new rituals to meet new stages in life, or the definition of older rituals and attempting to bring them up to meet new life stage demands. So, for example, one of the most ancient rituals that comes from the Middle Ages is the Birkat Gomel. Anybody know what the Birkat Gomel is? Christo, of course. What's the Birkat Gomel, babe?
It is a blessing that those called to the Torah usually it's a short prayer of thanks to God for having survived any sort of danger, sometimes while travel or.
Right. Its origins, Christo is spot on. When you used to travel from Minsk to Pinsk, that was an adventure. Okay, you just couldn't hop a flight or take the train. When you made it through, when you got to your destination, you said, in essence, thanks God I got here safely. There, in the New Reform Prayer Book, Mishkan Tefillah, they've actually included, which is to show you the change in the Reform movement, the Birkat Gomel. Now, with the rise of the feminist Jewish movement in the 70s, 80s, 90s, and now, the Birkat Gomel has come back into use. People have used it for, I've just completed my chemotherapy. I'm in remission. I'm cancer free. I will chant Birkat Gomel. One of the first times I saw this was I was doing high holiday services for a colleague who was ill. He was in an automobile accident, and there was a guy who had just been in an automobile accident a year before, had gone through a year of rehabilitation. They thought he was going to die. We called him up to the bima. He walked from the back of the shul to the front of the shul to the bima, and we chanted Gomel for him because he literally had successfully come through a dangerous journey. So this is the adaptation of an ancient ritual brought up to date. What I'm going to try and show you today, and we're not going to do all of it. I have files, 3 or 4 big thick files of this stuff at home, and I brought a couple. The study guide that we do use for this, which I have to update because it's getting old, is on the website, is on the JewishSacredAging.com website under the rubric, under the resources and study guides, new rituals for new life stages. So I'm going to go through here. I'm very interested in your reaction. There's no right or wrong. Some of these you may like, some of these may not for me. We'll see. Okay? Because we have enough. Well, anyway. Okay, show of hands. Show of hands. You don't have to worry about finding the yellow hand. Show of hands. How many of you have advanced directives? Okay, cool. I need a volunteer. Keep your hands up. Keep your hands up. Keep your hands up. Okay. Who? Oh, here's Leona. Leona's iPad. Okay, unmute Leona. Unmute. Unmute.
I unmuted. What do you want?
Okay. Well, excuse me. Where did you sign your advance directive?
Where, you mean a physical location? Is that what you're
Yeah,
talking?
yeah. The physical location.
Doctor's office.
The doctor's office. Okay. So, I don't know why lower hand. I signed mine. The first time I signed mine was in the lawyer's office. And you sign it, you sign it, you sign it. He's sign this, sign this, sign this. Here's your bill. Thank you very much. I got in the car. I'm driving home, and I realized that I had just physically acknowledged that I was going to die. Because that's what an advance directive, medical health prayer. It's your wishes when you die, before you die. And it occurred to me that this is a spiritual moment. Because a religious ritual takes an ordinary moment and elevates it to something sacred. Like when you get married, it's 2:00 on a Sunday afternoon, and it's just an ordinary. But what you're doing is taking that moment and elevating it to something sacred through this ritual. That's what religious rituals do. So I went to my class that I was teaching at the Hebrew Union College on longevity, and I played this out for them, and I said, here's what I'd like you to think about doing, a couple of you, if you want to. We should create a blessing. We should create a blessing for the signing of an advance directive. Here's that blessing. It's in the prayer book. It's in the study guide. I want you to listen to the words. This was written by a colleague, a rabbi, and an educator, Jewish educator. I want you to listen to the words. And I'm going to ask you just viscerally, how do you react to this? You can imagine this. By the way, no synagogue does this, which is ridiculous. To print this little blessing up on a 3x5 card and make it available to everybody in the congregation, so when they sign their advance directive, they can take it out and say, in essence, this blessing. Listen carefully. It starts with the Shehechianu and then continues. God, who has given me the power of choice and who has brought me the strength to make these decisions today. Thank you for granting me the wisdom to think ahead and to understand the great range of possibilities that could come in the future. While so much is out of our control, we are grateful that we can make choices in our life, make them known, and have them acted out in the event we are no longer have the ability to do so ourselves. When the time comes that I am no longer able to make decisions on my own behalf, may my wishes be carried out by those who are close to me. I have been blessed with so much, and may my family be at peace with my decisions. May we love one another and cherish our time together. Baruch atah Adonai, who has given us free will and agency in our lives. Amen. What do you think?
I like it.
Yeah, fascinating.
If you listen to the language, it celebrates the fact that we have been given the autonomy. If you remember from last week, the power of making choices at the end of our life. And a prayer that our choices will be carried out if we are unable to make them known by ourselves. I raise this because this is a perfect example of the creating a new prayer to meet a new situation, to take 30 seconds after you sign this document, which literally acknowledges that we are going to die, and take that moment and say, wow, this is a very special moment in my life. And I'm very grateful that I'm able to do this. I'm very grateful that I'm able to make my wishes known. And my prayer is that my family will honor those wishes, which is, according to Judaism in the fifth commandment, something that they are obligated to do. Any other comments, questions? Okay, we move on. Yes,
I
Yashin.
have a question. I don't really have a family except my husband. I mean, who's going to be honoring that if I'm not dying in my own home or in a hospital? I mean, I know people always ask, but it's usually like do not resuscitate orders rather than advanced directives. Do you think people really honor?
Yes. Oh, no, I don't think so. I don't think so. I know so.
They have to.
They don't have to. They don't have to.
They don't
And
have to. I know that.
they don't have to. And neither does the hospital. Which is why this is a whole other conversation, which I don't want to get. We'll be here all night. There's something called, and most of you, I think, are in Colorado. We talked a little bit about this last week in the medical aid in dying. But there's a form now that supersedes the advance directive, which is your wish. But there's a form called a PULSE form, a physician's order for life-sustaining treatment. In New York, it's called a MOLST form, medical order for life-sustaining treatment. You should talk to your doctor about it. That's a medical order that goes in the chart. That literally supersedes the advance directive, which is this is what I hope. This is what I would like. These are my wishes.
So
But
can I just ask that? So you tell your GP about it, and then
yes,
the GP puts it, I mean, they put the notes inside your patient notes electronically, and then it becomes like there?
it becomes a physician's order, and Medicare will reimburse physicians for conversations about end of life decisions,
Okay.
at least until they take that away. But right now, it's a reimbursable thing. There's a code for it. The PULSE form is something that if you're not aware of it, and it's legal in most states, and if Colorado has medical aid in dying, I guarantee you it validates. So it's worth having a conversation with your physician. Okay, here's the second. Oh, we're going to run out of time already. Here's the second thing that I want to show. How many of you have ever heard? How many of you have ever heard of a ritual? This is called the Simchat Chochmah. Simchat Chochmah. Has anybody ever heard of that? There's somebody with a hand up. No, there isn't. My computer is going crazy. John, you've heard of the Simchat Chochmah. You got to unmute, dude. Go ahead.
On Jewish sacred aging.
No, well, thank you for the plug. Okay, the Simchat Chochmah, two Hebrew words. Simchat is the construct form of the word simcha. Simcha is a joyous, a celebration. Chochmah, like Chochem, if you speak Yiddish, is wisdom, a celebration of wisdom. This is what this is. The Simchat Chochmah is a ritual prayer meditation that evolved in the 1980s out of the Jewish feminist movement. It is a celebration that I have lived to a certain age. The prayer that I'm going to read to you was developed by a woman who, I think, when she turned 70. She sat down with her rabbi. They created this meditation. She did it on a Friday night in front of the congregation, in front of the open ark. She was called up and she read this. Listen to the language. And I want to ask you what you think about it. Listen to the language. By the way, there's no congregation in the world that is institutionalized this. I'm actually working with one right now. I have 12 people who signed up to do this in this one congregation. Listen to this. All right, picture the Friday night services. The rabbi introduces what this Simchat Chochmah is, calls up this woman. Her name was Selma. She walks onto the bima, opens the ark, turns to the congregation, and reads the following prayer. She turns 70. River of light and truth, you have sustained me these many years and brought me to this place in my life's journey. Let me look out with wisdom from the high ground of my years and experiences over the terrain of my life. Let me gaze out towards the past and the future with a heightened sense of your presence as my guide. Let me see that growth is not reserved for any one season, and that love and fulfillment are not the exclusive provinces of the young. As today I celebrate my life's continued unfolding, I am awestruck by the wonder of my being, and so I pray that kindness and compassion may be on my lips, that strength and courage may be with me in my comings and my goings, and that I may continue to learn from and to teach those dear to me. O God, my Creator, as you are the first and the last, may my life ever be a song of praise to you. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, shedatan mechachmato levisar v'dam. We praise you, God, sovereign of the universe, who gives of your wisdom to flesh and blood. Amen. Any reaction? What do you think about that? The language.
I love
Beautiful.
it.
You think you could get? I mean, here we're living longer, and we're living better. And here's a person at age 70 says, "You know something? I've lived, and thank God I've reached this age. I'm not done." And I give thanks to the fact that I can continue to grow. That love and growth are not just for young people. This is like right out of every textbook on positive aging. But it's put in a religious context at a synagogue on a Friday night or whatever. I share this with you because I think that for some reason I do not understand it, that very few congregations are aware of this, and no congregation, I hope I'll change that by Shavuos, that no congregation has institutionalized this. And the role modeling of this for other people in a country like the United States, which is an ageist country that worships only the young, sends a very, very interesting message, which is a Jewish message that no matter how old you are, you never stop growing. You never stop growing. You can get old, you don't have to grow old. And that's a very, very different, interesting distinction. Okay. Sherry, did you have your hand up?
I did. I was just gonna say, I think one of the things I like about it so much, I like it for itself. I love the words and what she said, but I also really appreciate that it's like, Judaism is, alive and evolving and current, and like I don't see and hear that much of that sort of thing. We're
No.
so steeped in the traditional prayers, the tradition. So I love it that you're evolving things like
Oh
that.
no, this is why I think this is really exciting stuff, because if you ever want an understanding of that first formula of history we did 4 weeks ago, preservation, adaptation, innovation. This is right out of that formula. Our community wants meaning. We want meaning in our lives. And so we can create rituals and adapt previous rituals and prayers that speak to where we are right now. And sometimes they're in very positive things, like the blessing for the advance directive, the Simchat Chochmah, and sometimes they attempt to deal with certain life changes that are very, very significant to many people. This is one of those examples. Now, the following is not for everybody. I want to tell you that right now. Do not be offended. But and by the way, all these rituals that I'm talking about and reading you have been used. None of them were just created because we had nothing to, they've all been used in the real world. About 15, 20 years ago, when we first started to collect some of the things, when I was running the Department of Jewish Family Concerns for the Reform Movement, I got a call one day. John, do you have your hand up?
Yes, can you hear?
Yep.
Yeah. Maybe not a religious comment. In my congregations, most of us are older, and it's everybody could be doing the ritual, and I think it honors the person if they're healthy. I think it's supposed to be reaching out, but it honors the person and makes them known to the congregation, so we don't just get old silently.
Yeah. Yes. And listen, I would invite any of you who would like to write one of these to send it to me. We'll publish it. So let me get back to so this is about 15, 20 years ago. I was sitting in my office. Phone call comes in from a colleague, now retired, saying, "Richie, I gotta ask you a question. There's a guy who just left my office. 30 years ago, I did his wedding on the Bima. Lovely guy, very active, he and his wife. A year ago, she died. We did the funeral. The funeral started on the Bima. They were very active. He just came to my office and asked me that next Sunday, after religious school, when the synagogue is empty, he wants to come to the Bima and he wants me to do a blessing so that he can remove his wedding ring. What do you got?" And I said, "I haven't got nothing. I've never heard of this. But if you do it, would you please send me what you write, because I'm fascinated by it." About a month later, a letter, if you remember letters, arrived in my office with a note from my colleague saying, "We just did this last Sunday afternoon." And now we've collected two of these. Now picture this. It's a Sunday afternoon after religious school. The synagogue's quiet. The gentleman comes with his rabbi and a couple of selected guests on the Bima where he got married. His wife's funeral started. And he says the following: "With this ring, I was betrothed to you according to the laws of Moses, Miriam, and Israel. Ecclesiastes teaches me that there is a time for everything, especially for birth and death. From our heritage, I learned the importance of reaffirming our faith even at the most difficult of times, even when in the valley of the shadow of death. With the removal of this ring, I acknowledge again that I am losing your companionship, but the memories and love will always remain dear to my heart. May they continue as an inspiration to me and to those you touched. May they remain a blessing, and may we always praise God for the gifts of life and patience and for the righteous judgments made. God asks that we walk in the ways of Torah May that continue to be my will. Amen. Any reaction? Anybody
No.
about anybody offended by that? I love it. Jeffrey, you're muted. Jeff, you're muted. You're still muted.
So let me jump in while, until he gets unmuted. I don't follow the need for the blessing. In his blessing, he's acknowledging the memories and the love and everything attendant to it. And is he trying, he can do the same by leaving the ring on.
Okay.
Is he giving himself comfort? Everything he's asking for in the blessing is encapsulated in the ring.
Okay.
Well, it seems to me like he's given himself, I guess, another opportunity at a relationship, potentially. And otherwise, why would he remove the ring?
Well, I'll tell you, if I may, my late wife of blessed memory died 3 years ago. And at about 2.5 years, I decided that I didn't need the ring on because she's in me, my heart, my mind, my dream. And I felt it was time to take it off. So my words weren't quite as elegant as those you recited, Rabbi, but I made a ritual out of it, and I actually shared it with a good friend of mine whose wife died a year to the day after mine, and talked to him about it, and he did the same thing. And I'm going, her yard site is in 2 weeks. I'm going to the cemetery with my son to visit her on the day that we'll go back at night and say her name at yard site. And I was wondering, somebody asked me, well, what are you going to say when you look at the half of the plot that's yours? And I think that the Simcha Chochmah is the right idea. That's something I can say. I'm still here, but I know where I'm going next. I can see it right in front of me.
Yeah. I mean, Nancy, you have your hand up. I can't see you, but
Yeah. Well, I think everything that has been said is very beautifully put and is ritualized. I'm going to speak as someone who was raised as a Jew, but not religiously. Okay. So I did it with my grandparents. We did ritual, we did Passover, we did the New Year. So my question, I'm just saying what, might not be popular, but
no, go ahead. Go ahead.
what really hit me, I'm going to make a comparison, was when you were going over the Torah and translating it into how it relates today. So my question is, do we need, especially as we're bringing in more Jews or Jews like me who weren't bat mitzvah, who weren't this, do we start creating more ritual when the ritual is already here and it speaks like the discussion? That spoke to me. I'm just saying personally. I said that has great meaning when we were talking about Maimonides. So again, these are beautiful things that people could share, but does it have to be ritualized?
Okay, so Nancy raises an issue that I always wait when we do this conversation when it comes up. But it usually comes up at the beginning. And that is the question that many of my colleagues have raised.
Mhm.
And goes to a conversation that is very, very current within the rabbinate right now and clergy. That if everybody can create a ritual for themselves whenever they want it to speak to their own particular need, does it lessen the power of traditional ritual? And I don't know the answer to that question. I don't think that there may not be an answer to that question.
Well, I don't know either, but I guess, we went from Orthodox to conservative to Reformed. And part of it was there was almost like too much to do. So is it, and I guess I'm speaking of life as it is now. And please, I'm not trying to minimize the beauty of what people are saying, what we're talking about. But it always seems like we recreate, whether it's in healthcare, whether it's this, and we almost bureaucratize things more. So how do we keep this going? I think these are beautiful prayers, but do we make another book? Do we make another something for something that's here? Should we not do it in another way and use it? But that's how it spoke to me. I'm like excited.
No.
I was excited. Oh, I said, the Torah, I want to go read it now.
Yeah,
I want to read more of the Bible. But this doesn't do the same thing to me. But that's me.
No. The reason why I wanted to have this conversation with you is because exactly these kinds of conversations, because most people in our congregations have never really had a conversation about the role and power of ritual. That if they go to shul twice a year, kol hakavod, and they go through what they think are the things that they have to do without really understanding the power of what's behind it. And because we're being faced with so many different things, and the next one will give as a case in point. And because so many people want some sense of rootedness or connection to something beyond their own person, especially as we get older.
Yes.
There has been this resurgence. You can go to ritualwell.com, which is out of the Reconstructionist movement.
No,
and they do this all the time. And at home, literally, I mean, I don't have it here in Florida, but I have 3 file folders that thick of just stuff that people have sent us to speak to where they are. So I don't think there's a right or wrong here, Nancy. I wanted to bring this to you tonight to show you that right now within the American Jewish community, there's a tremendous amount of creativity, fervor, excitement, as people are trying to say, I'm living this particular part of my life. I want something more than just, have a nice day.
Right.
All right, John, you're up.
Yeah. About 4 months ago, I scattered the ashes for my wife, and I developed something for that. I thought I called it a very short ceremony, but I thought that was that was a ritual that was based on one of your posts, and Rabbi Paulette and another rabbi, and so very late. Thank you for that.
Yeah, so you're exactly right, and that had a particular meaning for that moment.
Yes.
Okay, just when Jeff will go to the cemetery to say something, rather than just staying there, I need to make something of this moment, to make it holy, to make it sacred, and I shouldn't be afraid to use those words because they're very meaningful to us. And so for example, I'll give you another example, Nancy. We've published in one of the bioethics case studies that we did many times when I ran the department. Every year we did a different case study. One of the more popular ones that we did was about 100-page case book on organ and tissue transplantation, which is a modern mitzvah for all across Judaism. Orthodox, Reform, Conservative, Reconstructionist, Renewal, I don't care, I'm humanist, I don't care. All across every branch, there is now the understanding that organ donation is a modern mitzvah under the rubric, the Talmudic ritual of Pikuach Nefesh, in order to save a life. So we printed up a series of prayers a ritual upon signing an organ donation card, a ritual for donating a loved one's organ tissues, and a ritual for when one receives an organ transplant. And so for example, and when we started with Christo, the Go Mail, the ritual for receiving a transplant, I got a heart transplant, which, by the way, it's very interesting. I know a young woman who's 42 years old, last June had a heart transplant and back home. We all remember, I bet you, remember in the 60s, the South African, I forget his name off the top of my head, the first heart transplant. Remember the night in the early 60s. Fast forward 60 years, the docs who I've spoken to about this, they have told me that the success rate for heart transplants right now in the United States is 90-some%. 90.
Amazing.
This young woman who I just had dinner with about a month ago, and you could see the scar right here. Last June, I mean, she's in all kinds of immunosuppressant drugs and everything, but she's walking around. She's gone to trivia and bars. She's gone out. She has a kid. Amazing. So listen. So the ritual for receiving a transplant, kidney transplant, bone marrow transplant, heart transplant, whatever, begins with the Go Mail blessing. Adonai for release from the danger of grave illness, through which I have recently passed. I thank you. Praise be you, Adonai, our God, who has been so good to me. And the recipient says, blessed is God who has helped me find the strength to endure my illness and has instilled in the human spirit the ability to provide the gift of an organ so that my life may be restored and renewed. Truly, the lives of my donor and donor's family have been a blessing, for to save one life is to save the world. May I be worthy of this greatest of gifts by appreciating each new day and by being a source of compassion, strength, and righteousness to my family, friends, and community. It ends with the Shema and the Shehechianu. Okay? A simple little thing basically acknowledging, in a sacred sense, I have been blessed. And I chant Gomel because I've made it through this journey. And I thank the person and the family who was able to donate this organ. Pikuach Nefesh. Here's an example. You won't find this ritual in the Talmud or the Midrash, but here's an example of something very, 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 very current. Okay? Yeah, Yashim.
Yeah, I like this a lot, Rabbi, because I believe that that our spirit, of course, has has permeated all aspects of our body, our cells. So in the process of receiving a donation of a heart, it's a way of receiving the blessings of life that have come through another person, and it's very important, I think, to acknowledge that. So it's sort of, I felt relieved that there is something for this, a prayer for this, because it's a spiritual transfer in a way, and that's why I think it's important to acknowledge it.
Okay, Christo, what did you write?
Oh, I put in the chat something from a new journal I've been writing in for the past several months. For over 1,000 years, the planet's wisest teachers have stood in awe of the miracle of creation. As our modern science has given us the tools to challenge nature itself, to give life and preserve life where none could have existed before, with these new advances, many questions of ethics will also arise.
Oh, and we're going to see some in a couple of minutes. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely
listening to you.
Okay, here's something that I know that does not happen in Denver or Trinidad or Las Cruces or Albuquerque. I know that. So you don't have to raise your hand and say, that never happens here. But where I come from in the wilds of New Jersey, this happens. This happens. Somebody knocks on the rabbi's door. Yeah, what do you want? How you doing, Morty? I'm fine, Rabbi. I got to ask you a question. Um, Listen, I want to know if you're available on 2 Sundays from now to come to the community room where I live at Shady Acres. It's a continuing care, you know, retirement community. And I want you to say a blessing because, my wife died 5 years ago. I went on this cruise and we went to the Caribbean. It was lovely. I got all these islands. I got a bunch of straw hats and blankets and cockamamie. But on the cruise, I met this lovely young woman. She lives in Littleton, which I think is near you. And she's divorced. I'm 75. She's 70. We struck up a friendship. You know, I'm alone. She's alone. We're not getting any younger. I don't like being alone. Who's going to look after me? We So we've decided to get together and we're going to have a couple of our friends over next Sunday afternoon in the community room. We'll have a little spread. We'll have your basic lox, bagels, whitefish salad, a little chopped liver for the 2 people who still eat that, and maybe some rugelach. And we want you to come and say the blessing and give us a blessing. To which the rabbi, of course, jumping up and down with great excitement, says, "Of course, Morty, I would love to do the wedding." Uh, 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 uh. Sorry, Rabbi. No one mentioned the M word. We have, sorry, Yashin. No one, neither one of us have any intention of getting married. Been there, done that, don't want to do it again. We're alone, Rabbi. We found each other. We don't know how much time we have left. We want to be together. We would just want you to come and say a blessing to say, thank God Morty and Sheila found each other. May they live and be well. Now, we published in the study guide 2 of these blessings that have been used. Now, I want you to think about this. Here's part of the ritual that was used in an assisted living facility someplace, actually in the Southwest, by the chaplain of that facility. Sunday afternoon, everybody's verpitzt, which is New Jerseyan for they got dressed nicely. They got the spread. They're standing with the rabbi, or the chaplain in this case, who was a rabbi. And they read the following prayer. Today we celebrate the loving commitment of these 2 people. In the Song of Songs, it says, Ani l'dodi v'dodi li, I am my beloved and my beloved is mine. This represents not only God's relationship with Israel, but also the commitment that is shared between these 2 people. Love lives as long as the human heart beats, as long as we draw breath. The soul reaches out to another, recognizing a kindred spirit, a receptive companion to share life's vicissitudes. Age is meaningless, for the mysteries of the heart know no temporal boundaries. Today we acknowledge their love for each other and bless their commitment. May they be healthy and lead productive lives. May they find sustenance in their relationship. May they find enjoyment in each other. May their physical presence strengthen their spiritual growth. May they nurture their fragility and rely on their strengths. May their days be full and inundated with love as we say, Amen. Anybody want to anybody offended by that? Anybody think it's
Wonderful.
I will
That
tell
is
you that
very-
when we first did this many years ago, many of the rabbis who were present when I did this in congregation pulled me aside and said, Richie, you cannot print this. And I said, why? Which of course meant that I was going to do it. Why? Two things came up. One, we have numbers of colleagues to this day. There was actually a conversation on one of the rabbinic listservs about 6 months ago, exactly on this. Many of my colleagues feel that if I did this, I would be guilty of fraud because we represent a tradition and I can only marry somebody. And if this was perceived to be a marriage, I would be operating in a fraudulent manner. But as I said before, it was straight clear. This was never a marriage. This was two people who found each other at a certain age. They just wanted to say, thank God you found each other. It's not good that you are alone. You should live and be well. Second negative reaction, some guy really came after me on this, literally, just with the shaking finger and everything. And he said, I don't think you should publish this. And I said, why? It happened to be in Chicago. And he said, look, I can understand my father finding somebody and you doing this. But what's to say that his grandson, who's a graduate student at the college down the street, won't knock on your door a month from now and say, Rabbi, address. I was at Zeta's ceremony that you did with this lady. I want you to meet my girlfriend, Rebecca. We've been living together now for 2 years, and we're deeply, deeply, deeply in like. We want one of these blessings for us. And this guy just said, that opens the door to all kinds of things, to which then we responded and it opened up the conversation. Is there a difference contextually? Go back to what we did last week, context. Is there a difference between two people in their 70s or 80s or 90s who find each other and somebody who's 30 and 28? Is there a difference in whether you would do such a blessing? Yeah, we're going to run out of time, so I'll cut to the chase. In my opinion, yes, there's a big difference. A big difference. The third warning sign of this has happened. Sherry, you're going to miss all the really good stuff. We're getting to the really good stuff now. What's to say, and this has happened, and I wouldn't be surprised if some of you know a situation like this, that 2 years after we do this at Shady Acres, and it's very lovely, that woman, Sheila walks into my office and says, I want to let you know, Rabbi, that we really appreciate everything you've done for us, but I'm moving back to my condo. Why? I thought everything was wonderful. Everything is wonderful. But Morty has just been diagnosed with cancer. I walked this walk before. I don't have the strength to do it again. I care for him. I will be there for him. But his children, his adult children have to step up. His family have to step up. I feel bad about it, but I just can't do this again. This is not a fake scenario. Okay?
Yeah.
This is very real. So I raise this with you because people have done these types of ceremonies, but it also opens up to a huge weakness that we have in the rabbinate. And that is we do a fairly good job of premarital counseling when people are getting married for the first time. We do a very lousy job when people come to us in situations with a second or third marriage or a situation like this, when we really don't sit down and say, let's examine some of the parameters. Where is the relationship with your adult children? Because some adult children say, I don't want any parts of this. You can't do this, or you can't get married again so quickly. And it has more to do with the inheritance or the states okay? This requires some very, very serious counseling out of love and compassion, because and I'm sure the number of people on this call, some of you must know situations similar to what I've just described, that sometimes they're great and sometimes things don't work out the way you want to. So here's another situation that's right out of the headlines. Okay. Oh, we are gonna run out of time. Hey, deep breath.
You're good. You can keep
No,
going.
no. A while ago, when we were in the department, we published a book called Kulanu. It's some of my colleagues have. I have a couple of them at home. Kulanu is about that thick. You can use it for a doorstop as well. What it is the history at the time of the entire reform movement's development of programs and support for the LGBTQ community. All the resolutions, rituals, marriage rituals, divorce rituals, essays by various people, etc., etc. Included in this book, and this was 20 years ago, written by someone who has done this journey, a rabbi who's done this journey, is a blessing for transitioning. Now, this is all over the news right now, especially because it's been totally politicized, and we're not getting into the politics of transgenderism. We're not, you'll be here all day, and it's just not the subject for tonight. But what we did find is Rabbi Kukla wrote a blessing for an individual who is going through transitioning from one gender to another. Now, we did this 20 years ago. We were a little bit ahead of our time. And we got called on it too, but we still printed it. It's in the book Kulanu. You probably don't have it in your libraries. Maybe you guys if you're members of one of the Denver synagogues, Joe Black may have it. Rick Rines may have it. I don't know whether Harry has it because he's retired now. But listen to the words here. Kulana, Rita. And you may be able to get it on the Great God Amazon. I don't know. When the union got rid of all the program departments like mine, they got rid of all the books that we did. So the only way you can find these, either I stole 2 or 3 that I use for teaching, and sometimes it's some of my colleagues have it. Most of the younger colleagues have no idea that we ever did this, it's a long story. But anyway, here's the blessing. Rabbi Kukla writes, and there's a whole page and a half of development, but we just don't have the time to go into that. This blessing may be recited before any moment in the transitioning process. It's a 3-part benediction. The first line, listen to carefully. I'm going to do Hebrew and English, so for those of you who know Hebrew. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, hama'avir la'ovrim. Blessed are you, eternal God, ruler of time and space, the transforming one, to those who transform, transition, or cross over. Then the recitation of Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, she'asani b'tselem Elohim. Blessed is God who has made me in the image of God. And the concluding benediction, the Shehechianu, thank you, God, for bringing me to this moment. So first line, thank you for allowing me to cross over, to transition. You've made me in God, in your image. Shehechianu, thank you for bringing me this moment. The Hebrew, ma'avir, ayin vet resh. For those of you who know the Hebrew, ayin vet resh has the sense of crossing, transitioning, moving. And so the rabbi who wrote this blessing used that Hebrew to try and encapsulate the sense of I am transitioning from one identity to another. I raise this with you only again to show you there's no blessing for transitioning sexes in the Talmud, the Torah, the Midrash, or the codes. But because we have people doing this now, they searched and created a blessing that took what they are doing and placed it in a sacred context. If you're saying there's a lot of people who don't agree with this, you're absolutely correct. You're absolutely correct. But for the people who are transitioning and who want some sense of, I want my faith community to support me, just like the guy with the wedding ring, what he was really asking for is, I was a member of this community for decades. This is where I am. I want my faith community to support me and to give me permission to go on with the rest of my life. Christo.
I have a companion volume to Mishkan Tefillah. It's called Mishkan Ga'ava. You've probably heard of it.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a supplement of liturgy for LGBT. I'm going to mess
Yeah,
it up.
yeah.
I put the plus sign in there for everyone else I can't think of. But it's got a lot of trans liturgy, specifically same-sex couples. It's really like, why didn't Mishkan Ga'ava come out sooner?
Because here's the reason why. First of all, the elevation of the whole situation is slower.
Mhm.
It had to go through committee because it was published by the CCAR Press.
Yeah.
Because I have it at home on the shelf, and the committee who put this thing together, they had to go through their process, and they have a process with any publication.
Yeah.
And then there was enough core individuals within the Jewish community who they could say contribute to this. I forget. We did a podcast on this. I forget who the colleague was who edited. I forget. It's at home now, and all my podcast stuff's at home. But that's the reason why. What's interesting to see now is politically some of the reaction to this. This is a very touchy situation right now, and but I wanted you guys to know that this is not in a vacuum. That there are blessings, there are writings, there are articles, there are colleagues at the seminary now. I mean, future colleagues at the seminary, at least in HUC and other liberal seminaries, who are transitioned, who have transitioned, and they're going to be serving our congregation. Some of them are already serving our congregation. So it's a new world. So that's the reason. That's the thumbnail, the short form, Christo.
It's too bad it's not in hardback.
Yeah, well, take it up with the CCR Press.
Already did, and they thanked me for the email. They're like,
yeah,
CCR is like, oy vey, it's Christo emailing us again. Will you leave us alone?
But trust me, I know the feeling. I know the feeling. Try. Never mind. Okay, shut up, Richard. All right, it's already 5 after 9. I want to 2 more things real fast, or 3 more things. In another book that actually it comes out of the same ballpark as what Krista was talking about, called Mishkan Refuah. Mishkan Refuah is also published by the CCR Press. It's a collection of readings for specific moments. One of these moments, and this the following meditation I'm going to share with you is brutal. Okay, holy mackerel. I get on the computer, I get these news alerts. So there was just something from the Washington Post that the White House has just halted all federal grants. I actually don't understand. I was teaching at this conference yesterday, and one of the breakout sessions, this guy, Dr. Mulberg, who is a geneticist, who works at very, very frontier genetic research on a very powerful, brutal, fatal childhood genetic disease. The way he was describing it, it was horrible. And he said, we had a meeting last Friday with the NIH to share information about research. We got to the meeting. The head of the NIH committee said, excuse us, we have to leave. We've just been told we are not allowed to share. We are not allowed to be in this meeting anymore. We are not allowed to this, the new administration has done this. Thank you very much. And he said, Rabbi, they just got up and left. So it's a different world. One of the things that is very prevalent, and we have blessings that we probably won't have time to go through on mental health issues and caregiving and chronic illness. Misha Berachs have been written for all of these particular issues. But one of the things is this devastating epidemic on Alzheimer's and dementia, which is continuing to grow from the current, according to the, I'll get you in a minute, Nancy, the current, according to the Alzheimer's Association, 6 million people to, as our generation, as the baby boomers age out, to somewhere between 15 and 16 million people to be affected by this disease. And there aren't enough people to take care of us. Plain and simple. In Mishkan Refuah, which is available through the CCAR Press, and Christo can probably get a bunch of them. And it's on Amazon, I think.
They are, sir, and I put links to both Mishkan Ga'ava and Mishkan Refu in our Zoom chat for people to have.
Great. Thank you. These are very good books, if you're interested in this. Mishkan Refuah, Gates of Healing, is a collection of readings and meditations. This one is called Facing Dementia. I share it with you because I want you to listen to the language and the imagery, because I've rarely come across a prayer or meditation which just is so factual. Listen to this. This is very tough. I don't want to sugarcoat this. My God, this is for somebody who's just received a diagnosis. My God, I'm about to enter a wilderness. All that I have thought is me, my voice, my thinking, my memories will slip away, and I may not even comprehend it. As I enter this wilderness, may my step quivers and my soul hurts. In this leap of faith, I will come to rely on so many, and we will all rely on you. Whom will I recognize? Who will recognize me? Even though my mind will change, please do not let the knitting of my soul unravel. Only you will know me, even if I do not know myself. Please help me to remember that others before me have found you in the wilderness. I am not sure I will know to look for you, but please look for me. Amen. I mean, this is a very stark meditation.
Powerful.
But I will tell you, if for those of us who've dealt with this issue, and probably there's still 20 people on this call, my bet is that some of you have done this. Some of you have walked through this walk with somebody. And the imagery of the wilderness, the podcast that we posted this week with Reverend Angelica, she just wrote this new book on the science and something of Alzheimer's, speaks to this. This meditation is really, really, it's brutal. It's blunt. Doesn't sugarcoat anyway. I don't know if I will be able to look for you. Please look for me. And you can interpret that concept, theology of that prayer any way you want. But it's very, very, it speaks really to a lot of what happens? Nancy, you have your hand up. Oh my God, we're almost out of time.
Oh,
Okay.
no, that's all right. I think that's beautiful. I had a mother with Parkinson's dementia, and you can hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. But I wanted to say, all those things, can they not be in a book, a supplement, like when we have the Passover service? And what I'm thinking of, you are like, I thought, look, I believe transgender is transgender. It was done in operations here in Trinidad, Colorado. But whatever you feel, you it's just like the Bible from 6,000 years ago. Were we kosher because the shellfish were dirty? I mean, there are things I think as a rabbi, when you bring up those ethical things, because you're a rabbi, you have to be in certain, you have to follow your profession. But what's wrong with saying a marriage ceremony? Do you see what I'm saying? Does
No.
the whole liturgy have to be changed? These are all wonderful things and should be incorporated. But how can they be incorporated?
Well,
You
Nancy,
see?
no, the thing is, if you study, and we don't have the time to do this now, maybe for another class, but if you study just the prayer book and, like you said, the liturgy, it's always evolved.
Yeah.
It's always changed. It's always been updated. And you can just take, if you had an opportunity to take a look at like a half a dozen prayer books that spanned the last 100 years, you would see the change in even the prayers. And look at the Passover Seder. The
Right.
stuff that's in a Seder now wasn't in the stuff that's on a Seder plate now was never on a Seder plate when I was a kid. The
And go
orange,
for it.
and the so one of the dynamisms of again, I go back to 4 weeks ago when we did the overview, the preservation, adaptation, innovation, change, not for change's sake, but change for the idea of keeping Judaism relevant and meaningful
Mhm.
in the civil has always been Orthodox. It doesn't matter. It still is ongoing.
Mhm.
But what the challenge is, we don't teach this enough. And
Mhm.
so the more you understand this, the more you learn about it, say, wow, this is why Judaism is so powerful. It's not for kids. It's for adults. No, it's not. Judaism is not for kids. We give kids little fairy stories and miracle stories and bubble mices because it's nice
Yeah.
when you're 7. When you're 57 and you have to deal with stuff, you don't want fairy stories. You want to give me a text that I can chew on that makes sense to me. When I've got a diagnosis like that, I want something to talk to me and make it meaningful and make sense of this
Yes.
tradition, or else I don't need the tradition.
Exactly.
Okay, so we only have 15 minutes. I got 2 things I want to share with you. The problem with this workshop is we always run out of time. I got to share because this just came to me recently, and I trotted this out to a group of chaplains last month. This is, I don't know whether you can see, you probably can't because this stupid Zoom
Mhm.
thing. You can see this is from a big book called Siddur Erev Shabbat. It was written by a chaplain at a continuing care retirement community in Northern California. It's a beautifully done, a large print prayer book that she uses on Friday night. But there's an appendix in the back that has some specific prayers in it that you won't find in the regular prayer service when you go to your synagogue. This is a meditation called "Why Hasn't God Taken Me?"
Mhm.
You ever bumped into somebody who's outlived their spouses, their children,
Yep.
and they turn around to the rabbi and say, "What? Why am I still here?
Mhm.
I've done everything. I have why?" This is a 2-page prayer that basically asks the question, why? You know? Adonai, this living has listen, and the language is this is written by a young one, has squeezed the juice from me. I am but a rind, my innards pulp. You nurtured my early self. You amazed my childhood. I yearned in my youth and loved in my ripeness. And this first part is goes into this is what I've done in my youth. I did all this wonderful thing. I sang my song and danced my dance. And now I am old. The trickle in my veins barely nourishes me. I ache in every part of me. So many of my dear ones are dead. Why have you sustained me in this withering? How is it possible now to add to your majesty? What purpose can there be in my suffering? Is there yet a task for me that I have missed? If so, keep not this secret from me, for I am ready, my Creator, to give up this body to the earth, to be remixed into a fresh life. I long to be joined to you as I long for the lover of my youth. In your mercy, dear one, I beseech you, walk by and offer your hand. Take me. Uh, I will tell you that I found this, and it just came to me like in December. This lady sent this because I found this to be absolutely brutally honest.
Mhm.
Because every colleague I know, me included, every rabbi, every cantor who has worked with people has had this conversation with somebody at some time in their career. And rarely have I ever seen it put into a concept of a meditation. I wanted to share that with you because, um, this is a slice of real life because we are living longer.
Rabbi,
And
what's your thoughts on ethical wills?
oh, we it's part of our time to prepare book that we did. It's also on the website. We teach it. I mean, yeah, it's from the tradition. It's based upon the deathbed blessing through Jacob in the last chapters of the book of Genesis. It's very traditional, very traditional. And numbers of synagogues have actually done ethical will classes, which is different than the Simchat Chochmah. The Simchat Chochmah is a celebration of I've acquired a certain amount of wisdom in life. The ethical will is, my grandchildren, this is what I've learned in life. This is what I bequeath to you. Not the condo or the Cadillac, but this is how you treat people. So it's a very interesting conversation. If you haven't had a class on the writing of an ethical will, put that on the list as well. Okay. Yeah, Jeff.
Rabbi Elena Zaman's Forever Letter is it's it about
Yeah.
that.
Yes, I think she did a podcast for me last year on that book, on the Forever Letters. Last thing I wanted to raise, we won't cover all the other stuff because we just don't have the time. That's the problem with all this Jewish stuff. There's so much, you know? The study of the text and stuff, this stuff is fantastic. It really, and I hope you understand, if you take nothing away from tonight, take away the fact that, wow, we're part of an organic, living, growing, energizing tradition that really seeks to bring the tradition and meaning into stuff that we're living every day. For example, this is also not fiction. Every single congregation I have ever done this discussion with, this has come up. Every single one, no exceptions. That some guy walks into my office and says, "Rabbi Adjus, I got to talk to you. I'm overwhelmed I'm challenged. I'm struggling. What's wrong?" You know that I'm a healthy man. I'm 68 years old. I go to business. I work out. My kids are good. They're in Pittsburgh and in Phoenix. But you also know because you visit my wife. My wife's in the memory care unit at Beth Israel Hospital. She's never coming out. We know exactly what's going on. She barely recognizes me. She doesn't recognize the kids anymore. She's getting nice care. I visit her almost every single day. Yes, I know you do. Tell me why you're here then. How can I help you? Well, I can't talk about this with anybody. I can't talk about it with my children. I can't talk about this with our friends who we go out to dinner with, who we've traveled with. But a year ago, my kids just gave me a treat. They gave me this talk tour, and it was this lovely cruise, and it was wonderful for 10 days. I just forgot about everything. Forgot about work, my business. My kids took care of my wife. Uh, But the challenge is, I met this lovely young lady, and she's a widow. She lives in a town near us. We got to talking. We became friendly. We met for coffee after the cruise. She's alone, I'm alone. We began to go out. We become intimate with each other. And I, I, I don't know how to handle it, Rabbi. I mean, am I committing adultery? But it's so terrible to be alone. And my wife she's never coming out of there. She's never going to come back. You know, and I know because you visited her. You know, and I know what the end is. And I'm still young and I am healthy. And as I said, I can't talk about this with anybody. But I need you to tell me, am I doing something wrong? This scenario is not fiction. My question to you is, and there is no such ritual or document existing in the American Jewish or worldwide Jewish community that deals with this. My question to you is, given the fact that this is a very real scenario, should we, as a religious community, talk about this? Talk about it. Say, look, we know this is going on. Here's some guidelines. Here's some historical precedents. Should we create some sort of document that would be signed perhaps when you sign your advance directive that says, in the situation of this situation, horrible as it may be, I know you will take care of me as I will take care of you because we love each other. But if in the context of this journey you find yourself in the need of physical, emotional, or spiritual companionship, I give you permission. Unless you think I made that up, lest you think I made that up out of the clear blue, in researching an article for the CCAR journal on older adult sexuality that was published about 10, 12 years ago, I actually found such a document that was created by somebody in Northern California called an open letter to my spouse, which says exactly what I just told you. And how would we massage this Jewishly? Because surely, is there a precedent for something like that in the vast reservoir of Jewish tradition? Interestingly enough, there can be. A colleague of mine actually, in an assignment that I get, actually researched taking a traditional concept called the Agunah, Agunah. The Agunah is a medieval traditional concept called the chained wife. It stems from the fact that when a spouse, a husband, would be lost in either battle or at sea, and they could not find the body, the wife was unable to get married without proof of the death. They were chained. Could you then extrapolate a traditional Jewish concept of Agunah and say, is the healthy spouse of someone whose spouse is end stage Alzheimer's or dementia? Or could they be reinterpreted as a contemporary Agunah and thereby give them permission? I raise this, and again, there is no such ritual, document, prayer meditation in existence. But people are living this. Is this something that the congregational world, the Jewish world, should just say, this is so private, this is so personal, stay away, stay away? Or do we have a responsibility to say, look, this is what's going on, and we know what's going to happen statistically. We really need to talk about this and remember the context, because it's not for everybody. It's not for everybody. But for some, it may be a way for them to continue living, because it doesn't mean that they're going to not take care of their spouse. And then you'll say, but what about the adult children? We had a case once of a man who was doing this. His wife was in the memory care unit, never coming, very end stage. The grandchild was having a bat mitzvah. The man wanted to ask his adult daughter, can I bring my friend?
No.
Chuck it. And the answer from the child was, Mom is going to be there. She's going to be in a wheelchair. She may not even know where she is. You can't. It would be insulting on every level. His response was, you're right, I'm not. But I raise this in closing to get you to think. Because I'm sure that some of you may know a scenario similar to this operating either in the congregation or in your sphere of friendship. We've seen a whole slew of situations where Judaism has attempted to bring a sense of tradition and support, spiritual support, to people in new stages of life. This is a new stage of life for many people, a stage that can last not months, but years. And on that happy note, I thank you for your attention. We're bringing this puppy in right on time, Neil. Thank you very much. If you like, I look forward to talking with you again. Feel free to email me at the website, rabbiaddress@jewishsacredaging.com. If any would like to write for the website, as I told you 4 weeks ago, please feel free to send me stuff. Stay safe, stay healthy, and just take care of yourself and be kind to one another. It's right now, let me tell you something. That's the most important thing. Just be kind. Everybody's struggling with something.
Thank you,
Just be
Rabbi.
kind.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Rabbi.
Rabbi,
This was
thank
Bless
you.
wonderful.
you.
Take care, guys.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. This has been a fascinating series. and
Wonderful.
Thank
Look
you.
forward to having more.
Okay,
Yes.
okay, Neil, take care.
Thank you.
Please
Thank you all
teach
for
us again,
joining.
Rabbi.
Bye-bye, guys.
Thank you
Bye-bye.
very much. Thank you.
Thank you,
And
Rob.
thank you all for supporting Temple Aaron in Trinidad.
Bye-bye.
Appreciate it.